Ready, not ready. These aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact Friday. Oh, that's hot. Evening, everybody. Happy Friday. I apologize in advance to everyone for how underprepared I am for this video, but I've had a really intense, really, in a good way, a really good, intense, long day. I do have the 5 facts for you. And because we have so many new subscribers on the channel since last week, probably worth a recap. 5 Fact Friday is the weekly video or newsletter that I do where I report the 5 most significant events that have been reported in the housing market in the last 7 days. Okay, so no opinions. I might express opinions about the facts, but these are 5 verifiable things where I provide the links in the description below so that you can see. And they're the 5 things that I think are the most important, as I've said, housing market factors reported in the last week, but it's designed for you to be able to inform your own decision, because there are people watching this who are just thinking about moving home probably sometime next year. There are people who are probably in the middle of a deal and it's going through the pipeline. You're hoping your chain's not going to fall through. There are people who are at the very end, maybe just about to exchange, people who've been trying to sell for a long time but can't sell. And so this is just to give you a zoomed out, this is what's happened this week that may or may not influence the market and your decision. Now, for the last 2 years, those of you who've been following my channel for this long will know that I've been very, very worried about the risks of negative equity because of falling house prices. Those of you who have been paying attention and listening to my concerns back since summer 2022, those of you who listened got out at the top, at the higher end of the market, larger properties, got out of the top in summer 2022. And if you haven't sold since then a larger house, you're, depending where you are in the country, somewhere around 20% down since then. The lower end of the market, first-time buyers, has held up much better because of the surprising extra demand for those properties from downsizers. And part of my concern was, basically, it was all based around the evisceration of household income, in particular disposable income, and people's future prospects. And as we've seen, GDP per head and real wage growth has been negative for some of that time, or flatline. Right now, real wage growth for total pay is 1.4% after adjusting for inflation. And yet, as we'll see in this video, owner-occupiers household inflation is 7.4%. So that's 6%. The costs of housing are going up 6% faster than wages. So if you're wondering why everything's feeling more expensive, despite the press telling you that everything's fine and the economy is not in recession and all that kind of, those are the actual facts, right? The government facts. Total pay after inflation is 1.4% wage growth, but household cost growth is 7.4%. So you are effectively sinking currently at 6%. You are sinking in terms of the cost of owning your house versus your wage growth, right? Wages going up that much, house cost ownership going up that much. And I did a poll on X I'll show you later, but let me address the very clickbaity thumbnail of this video. Since 2022, I have been saying that I'm expecting prices to slide peak to trough by 35% on average, nominal, from the top to the bottom, over however long that takes. Quite a lot of numpties thought I was saying that that would happen in 1 year. I never said that would happen in 1 year. But those are just the numpties. And although I confess that prices haven't fallen across the entire market at the speed I expected, prices at the higher end of the market have fallen at the speed I was expecting and will easily exceed 35% nominal falls from the peak by the time the slide is over. And I say that with increased confidence now because of the news that's just out this week, on top of the budget news and everything else. Need another slurp. still don't think there's going to be, let me rephrase that. Is there going to be a crash? Whilst I think there is a slightly larger chance of that happening now than there was than I thought just about a month ago, I'm still not expecting a crash. So let's say if a month ago you'd asked me, I'd have said there's maybe a 10% chance of prices crashing rather than just sliding. That's probably gone up to 20-25% chance of an actual crash now. Why is that? Because when you add up all of the data coming out, and I'm sorry, you have to look beyond the headlines. If you are a headline only reader, what I'm saying will make me sound like a lunatic nut job. But if you actually look beyond, and for example, Sasha Yanchin's video explaining using the government's own inflation data from the government's own website, you can see that what's reported on the BBC and the Guardian and on the government's website about inflation and what's actually happening are very different. But if you can't be bothered to look beyond the headlines, then caveat emptor, right? You've got to watch that for yourself. All of these things are basically worse and worse and worse news for consumers. On top of this, we've got mortgage defaults going up. They've been consistent. They're not very high. They're still not very high, but they're going to get higher. And we've now got, from memory, the last eviction figures, the last quarter they were reported for, I think there were 2,500 families or households actually evicted by landlords on Section 21. But there were 8,500 new evictions started in that quarter. So we've got evictions going up from landlords' properties. That's a signal that more and more landlords' properties are going to be coming to the market, because there are so many landlords who've still been caught asleep at the wheel by what's going on with legislation and tax changes. And we've got the highest amount of property for sale on the market for over 10 years, according to Rightmove. And also very fast falling asking prices at the top end of the market, also according to Rightmove. And unemployment's rising, job vacancies are falling. Inflation, which I'm coming on to, is going back up, and it's not just a blip. And retail sales came down, and the PMI, UK PMI index came out today and has turned negative again for the first time in over a year. And all the policies that haven't yet come into effect yet for the new year, for April, the new tax year, because of our genius chancellor, are going to be putting inflation up, but jobs and employment down. Okay? The only logical explanation is that they are doing this on purpose, because you have to be an absolute, I mean, even if you do just work in customer complaints, you'd understand that what's happening can only hurt the economy, and that hoping for growth doesn't actually equal growth. And talking about the fact that we're going to deliver growth when no one else has makes it sound like you think that there's a magical growth button you can just press. They haven't delivered growth. We're going to deliver growth. You just press this button. They obviously didn't deliver growth because, I don't really know, but they haven't delivered growth, but we're going to deliver growth. How? Or investment. Oh, great. So if you just invest, does it guarantee growth? No. I am looking, and next week I'm hoping to actually be in person with Alex, Groundwater Housing Stig. I don't know if that's going to happen yet or not. And I want to dig deep into this, because definitely all the economic indicators are getting worse. What does that mean for the housing market? It doesn't matter if you're living in a home that you can afford and you're going to stay there a long period. Don't worry, you shouldn't even be watching this if that's the case. But if you're considering buying with a very high loan-to-value mortgage, and you are vulnerable to a financial shock like losing your job, and house prices do come down in the next couple of years, you may well end up in negative equity. And actually, on this week's private live movers Q&A show a couple of nights ago, I found myself saying, when it comes to flats in London, I'd be in no hurry at all. And unless I needed and wanted it, I just wanted to go on my life and I wasn't worried about finances, I'd be really not in a rush at all. I'm not changing my suggestion that if you need and want a home and you found one you can afford to buy, you should buy it without overpaying. I'm just saying that with every passing day, and especially in London where rents aren't going up, they're going up in the rest of the country, but they're not going up in London. renting's looking increasingly attractive compared to buying. Because with renting, you don't have the risks of any shocks or leasehold service charges or that kind of stuff. Sorry if you're selling a leasehold flat in London right now, you're not going to thank me for this, are you? Shall I actually get into the 5 facts or keep rambling? Let me get into the 5 facts. So, fact number 1. This is in no particular order. The right to buy reforms consultation. That's right. This is a big deal. I'm not going to pull the link is below, but in a nutshell, Angela Rayner has announced that right to buy is going to be changed. So you have, first of all, have to live there a lot longer before you're allowed to buy it. Secondly, the discount's going to be a lot smaller. Thirdly, councils are not going to allow, if you buy it, you're not allowed to sell it for a long time unless you have to give money back to the council. And fourthly, councils are going to be required to use all of the money proceeds from sales of social homes for building new ones. So these are all, these don't change the market at the moment. It's got no impact on house prices or the market, but it's a step in the right direction for improving the housing market in the long term. And it's big news because it's the first time something like that has been announced. It's just a consultation at this point. It's just a consultation, but it's laying out the intentions. And from what I've seen, unless I've missed something, it's all good news. The reason that having more social homes is good news for the private renter sector is that if the government can meet its own housing obligations with government-owned housing stock, it takes the pressure off the private renter sector and allows rents to come down. It's the only solution to the housing crisis. It is the only solution to the housing crisis, is rampant building of new social homes until the government's legally obligated housing obligated obligations are met. Nothing else solves the housing crisis. That's fact number 1. Right to buy being reformed. Good news, a rare piece of good news, and congratulations, Ange Rayner. I am, notwithstanding my severe disagreements with some of her policies, and I think she's made some judgment errors. Angie Rayner is the only person in the Labour Party that gives me any hope that something good might come from it. Don't know why, it's just a gut feel. But come on, Ange, come through for the housing market and actually make it better. And don't anyone confuse me with being a socialist. I'm not a socialist. Socialism is guaranteed financial doom. But this is a good move for the housing market. So good on you, Ange, and bring it on more of that, please. Fact number 2, in no particular order. Oh yes, the ONS's house price numbers. Let me get this up on the screen for you. I haven't checked. Am I talking to a silent? Can everyone hear me? I'm assuming you can all hear me. Hello, everybody. Joanne, Patricia, Carlos, Modi, Anthony Wood, X, Fee, Alex, Patricia, Midnight Owl, Shady Shack, Argy Bargy, Doug. Hi, guys. Right. Let me get back to it. I need to share the screen. And this one. So the ONS, I did a video in depth on this earlier this week, didn't I? And I hope you guys saw it. I'm just going to try and stop myself from getting too wound up again. Every month that the ONS puts out a new house price index figure, it is based off a very small sample of reported completions, like around about 8%. And every month, as they add more completions for that month, they revise the figures. And for the last couple of years, every single time they're revised down, 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 down. In the Southeast, thank you, Mark Tabaret, because you're the one who's done the work to show this. They've revised, so for September 2024, the reports for September 2023 are now 4% lower. The ONS's own figures for September 2023 house prices in the Southeast of England are now 4% lower than when they first reported them, but no one ever reports it. I mean, I'd have thought that would have been quite good reading. I'd have thought that if I was a journalist, I'd be like, that's worth reporting. That's definitely worth reporting, because then people will stop taking the ONS figures as gospel. If their own figures that come out later show that it's reduced, fingers crossed there's a story coming out about that soon. So bearing in mind that average UK house prices increased by 2.9%, don't think for 1 minute that means house prices have increased 2.9%. Oh, no. Let's just go to the very next paragraph. Actually, in England, it was 2.5%, including London. So what's that do? In Wales, it was 0.4%, and in Scotland, it was 5.7%. So it wasn't 2.9% in any of those countries. So average UK house prices are totally useless and misleading for the whole country, because the average is lower than some countries and higher than other countries and doesn't help. At an individual level, at a local level, and even at a national level for the 4 nations, the UK average is a waste of time. And if you ever hear an agent say, oh, look, the ONS says house prices have gone up, it does not mean that all house prices have gone up. And the ONS's own website, again, the video I did on Monday evening, go and check it out. I go into this in detail. I picked at random Wandsworth as a borough. And in Wandsworth, in the last year, detached houses, I think, are down 7% and flats are down 1%. But the ONS also said house prices are up 2.9%. That's why they shouldn't say house prices. What it should say is the average UK transaction value index. It's not even an average. The UK's UK house transaction index has changed, but it is not linked to house prices. Anyway, that's that. Basically, disregard ONS stuff unless it's very local. Go and look up the local house price calculator on the ONS, because that is good, and I give them credit for that. And I genuinely thank you. Well done. Good work, ONS, on your local house price calculator, because you break it down by property type, which is great, and it's broken down by borough. So in each borough, you can look at your property type and see what the movement in the last 12 months has been. But even then, that's just the average of all the detached houses in a borough, okay? And there will be some more and some less depending on other hyper-local things. Okay, onwards, Charlie. Come on, keep calm, keep calm. Fact number 3, inflation. It's just bad. You'll see I grayed out CPI there, because CPI is a meaningless figure. It's used for certain things government has to work out. But CPIH is the overall inflation figure, including owner-occupiers' housing costs. And that is now at 3.2%. Correct. It's gone back. It's gone up from 2.6% last month to 3.2%. That is a very big jump in 1 month when inflation is supposed to be under control. Right? 2.6% last month, 3.2% this month. That is CPIH up at 3.2%. But never mind that. If you're an owner-occupier of a house, it's actually 7.4%, up from 7.2% last time. And apparently this is the highest owner-occupier housing costs inflation has been since the early 90s. So for 30 years. It never gets talked about in the media. It never gets talked about in the press. But go and watch Sasha Yanchin's video on UK inflation, or Damien Talks Money did one as well. Either one of those, and you'll get the actual truth, the cold, unvarnished truth using the government's own data, and you won't get the gaslighting headlines. And I implore you, if you are new to this channel and you're making a major life decision, do not do it based on anyone's headlines. Okay? Always find the source data. Because this inflation readout, what does it mean? It means there's less chance of interest rates coming down. It means there's less chance of mortgage rates coming down, which means there's less chance of buyers paying sellers asking prices, which means there's more chance of sellers dropping their prices, which is good for transactions potentially if the sellers can afford to drop their prices. But if they can't, it increases the chances of negative equity. Okay, this inflation increases the chances of negative equity. And it actually just makes the prospects for housing transactions a bit harder. Okay, important to note what's happening, because if you look at that blue trend line right on this graph, it was trending down quite steeply, down, 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 down. Ooh, but now I've leveled off, and now I'm starting to actually sort of trend back upwards again. Anyway, that is fact number 3. Fact number 4. This is good news, potentially. Nothing immediate, but it's good news. Matthew Pennycook in Parliament reveals urgent plans to end leasehold and enact RoPA. I'll come on to that in a minute. But the ending of leasehold and the bringing about of common hold will be massive progress for the housing market. It doesn't solve all the current leasehold problems, because I think, if I'm right, and I haven't had a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, this first step, which will be within this Parliament, so by 2029, it's not happening anytime soon, but it's still on the horizon and it's coming, is going to be that there'll be no new leaseholds allowed. New builds will have to be common hold. Go and look it up. There's lots of information about it. But common hold is much better for the purchaser of a flat that used to be leasehold, is now going to be common hold. My understanding is that if you are an existing leaseholder, your leasehold will continue to be a leasehold after that. It's only new ones that will be common hold, because unpicking the Gordian knot of leasehold law going back hundreds of years is just too big a problem. But they will be clarifying, I think, hopefully, the opportunity for leaseholders to extend things and give leaseholders slightly better powers. That's good news. Enacting RoPA is not good news. RoPA is estate agency regulation. And whilst it's one of those things, sounds good, doesn't work. I'll give you one example of why it doesn't work. There are existing regulations that say it is illegal and a breach of the code of conduct and fraudulent to deliberately overvalue someone's house in order to get them to sign a long-sole agency contract. And yet, it is completely normal. It is done thousands of times a day all over the country, because nobody enforces this rule. And what they're planning for, RoPA stands for the Regulation of Property Agents. And some parts of it are quite good, but it creates a lot of red tape. It's good for the big corporates and it's bad for the small agents, because small agents, it's more red tape and bureaucracy, which is much more expensive when you're a small business, and it won't solve the 2 problems. Number 1, dishonesty. It's already illegal to be dishonest, but nobody ever gets done for it because nobody ever complains about it, as in nobody ever brings a formal case against an agent for this. Okay. Number 1, for that reason. And number 2, so dishonesty and overvalue, which are basically the same thing. But that's why this enacting of RoPA, which honestly, I don't think they'll get it through. I've got good, close colleagues in the industry who think it's a great idea. And I say to them, how does it stop overvaluing? And they go, oh, well, I have to have qualifications. Yeah, but how does it stop overvaluing? Well, I mean, it means it's going to stop the really worst kind of agents coming. Yeah, but how does it stop overvaluing? It doesn't stop overvaluing, and overvaluing is the biggest problem in the sales market. So it's a waste of time. Leasehold reform, great. Enacting RoPA, boo, doesn't help. More red tape and regulation that won't be enforced and won't make any difference. After this, by the way, I'll take some Q&A if you'd like to. Next up, we have number 5. By the way, I've got some bonus facts as well. Here it is. So today we also had from our friends at the Office of National Statistics, retail sales falling in 0.7% in October, following a rise of 0.1% in September. And my point here is that this is, again, it's a sign about the economy. And everyone's going, oh, it was much worse than expected. These are, in my opinion, headlines about consumer confidence. And the headline figures we see in the news don't actually report on private householders' disposable incomes. Okay. And the other story that came out today that's also pretty negative is on Reuters. UK firms report first contraction since 2023 after budget, PMI shows. Okay, this is the Purchasing Managers Index. It's just an opinion. It's just a sentiment thing. I find that it's always over optimistic. It's the preliminary S&P Global Flash Composite Purchasing Managers Index. So below 50 means negative. It means that they're expecting contractions. All right, guys. So those are the 5 facts. Do we have any challenges? Do we have anyone going, nonsense, Charlie? This is terrible. You're talking utter stuff and nonsense. Come on. Let's have some challenges. Anyone got some challenges? Let's have a look in the comments here. Question. Okay, good question. I'll come back to that midnight owl in a minute. Let me just find some more. Oh, I have a challenge here. Doug, this is a very common challenge. I'm going to take the mickey a bit, Doug. You can't just pick random segments of the housing market that fit your narrative. Right. The first thing you have to do to justify that challenge is tell me what you think my narrative is. What do you think my narrative is? Now, the second part is I don't pick random segments. I choose the things that I think are the most significant pieces of news to affect the housing market this week. But I always invite people to tell me if they think I've missed something. So, Doug, tell me what piece of housing market news that's from the last 7 days I've missed that you think is as significant or more significant than any of the 5 that I've reported. I would be very happy, and I will happily, if you produce something right now, tell me what it is. Tell me what I've missed out, because you're accusing me of cherry picking bad news, aren't you? Hasn't it even all been bad news? But yeah, to anyone, any new followers who think that I'm just a happy doom monger, let me know. Come on, let me know. The rule is it must be reportable fact, so you've got to provide a source of the fact you think I've missed, and it must be new in the last 7 days. Those are the only 2 rules. Tell me what I've missed in the last 7 days that's more important than the ones that I've mentioned. Wow. Patricia says owner-occupier housing cost is about 12 to 18 months behind. So what do you think? You think it's going to get worse or better from here, Patricia? No, common hold doesn't mean everything's going to be automatically okay. It's a change in the structure of ownership, but it is an improvement based on other common holds that are done in other parts of the world. It's definitely less bad than leasehold. Come on, any more challenges? Doug, are you still there? Because come on, I'm really welcoming your challenge. Any other questions? So let's take Midnight Owl's question. What would be a reasonable time to find a property after I accepted an offer on my existing property? This is a very important question, actually, because if you don't find one soon enough, you're going to lose your buyer. But you also don't really want to be doing it under pressure either. So hopefully you've been looking already and you haven't just started looking going, oh God, we've accepted an offer. Maybe we better find somewhere. I think that now that you are, if you had an offer accepted on your property, that puts you in a position to proceed with an offer on your next place. I think that if I was the buyer and you're selling the house that I'm buying and you've got to buy somewhere else, I would expect you. It depends on what. I don't know what area of the market you are, top, bottom, middle. I don't know what the market's like where you are, but typically speaking, I would hope that you would have been kind of keeping an eye on the market and you'd be ready, and that within a month you'd have found something and put an offer on it and hopefully had it accepted, or started offering within a month and had somewhere under offer accept. So your offer accepted on the next place at least within 6 to 8 weeks max, and be proceeding quite quickly. Because After that, you could still be waiting another 4 or 5 months for your new transaction to complete, and your existing buyer by then will have been waiting 6 or 7 months. So you really need to move without delay. Don't rush, but don't delay. I mean, I advise buyers in the situation where they're the buyer, you've accepted their offer. I get lots of buyers saying to me, Charlie, the seller's taking a long time. I don't know. How long should I wait? What I always say is, I don't know what your circumstances are, so you've got to decide how long you're prepared to wait. And then you need to let the agent know to say, look, just so we're all clear, the longest I can wait for this to go through is this much. So if I haven't seen evidence of progress from the seller side by this date, I'm not pulling out, but I'm going to start looking elsewhere because I'm going to start assuming that they're not going ahead with it. In other words, what you're doing is you're gently sounding the bell, which is you're not going to wait forever, and they do need to get a move on. And I think as long as you can see evidence that the seller is actually in good faith, making efforts to find new places. But it's a horrible situation to be in as a buyer when you've got a seller who's actually not even sure where they want to move to or how, and they just haven't really got themselves together. So midnight owl, if you don't want to lose your buyer, I would recommend just making sure that your buyer knows you're moving as fast as you can. And I want to read you guys a message out from today, from someone who. So if you want to book, you can book to talk to me on my website, mhwc.co.uk/speak to Charlie. And someone who has been speaking to me sent me a message today. Thank you, that's helpful. We've accepted that buyer's offer. They went to asking price. Look at that. Less than 10 days of talking to you, house on the market and sold at asking price. Understand, people, that provided you follow the rules about how to sell your house, how to choose the agent, how to do it right, how to get competing buyers, they had competing buyers for this, you can get your house under offer very quickly. And like some of the other sellers who've been asking me questions, not taking consultations, and you're saying, what do I do? I can't sell. What do I do? I can't sell. What do I do? I can't sell. I mean, every single day I'm getting messages from sellers saying, I can't understand it. I've been on the market for a long time and the house is really nice and everything's fine, but it's not going through. It's price, guys. It's always price. It's price, or it's an intrinsic problem with the property. So, for example, flood risk has become too unacceptable since you purchased the house, and now lenders aren't going to lend on it because of the flood risk, that kind of stuff. And don't hide from that if it's true. Like, if that happens to be the unfortunate truth about your house, the sooner you face up to it, the sooner you can move on with whatever's going to happen, one way or the other. Don't put your blinkers on and go, la, 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 I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it. You've got to just face up to it, guys. Okay. Siddhartha Bomik says, Charlie, what would be a reasonable price to offer for a property which needs a lot of work and is on the market for the past 1 year? I'm asking as according to your prediction of price reductions. Well, Siddhartha, obviously I can't pluck a number out of the air. I don't know if you're looking at £100,000 property or £1 million property. I don't know anything at all about what you're doing, but it's not about reasonable prices. It's about what a property is worth to you. Never offer more than a home is worth to you, but always offer the maximum comfortable price of what it's worth to you if you want to buy it. Okay. So you work out for that property. It needs a lot of work. Okay. It's been on the market for a year. Okay. I don't know. You haven't told me what the asking price is, so I can't comment on the actual numbers. The question I would ask myself in that scenario is, if I buy it, would I be able to sell it the next day for the same price? Or if that property went to auction, what do I think it might get? It's very hard. You've got no way of knowing, but yeah, there you are. James says, hi, Charlie. Is putting a past sale price into the nationwide price index and seeing the value now a good idea to gauge an offer price to make on said house? No. I understand. But again, what you're doing is you're using a national average to inform what you think the price of that house should be now. So this is exactly why national house price indices should be completely ignored. Now, if you want to find a price index to do that, right, go to the land registry and look on the land registry and also Otter Property, right, for the borough where it is. And you can see historical price data on the land registry. That will give you some, but trouble is it's not 6 to 9 to 12 months out of date. The most recent data is not up to date enough. But I don't know how many years ago it was. So if it's been quite a few years, look at the land registry's charts for the prices in that area for that property type, if you can. Dave Ozan says, hi, Charlie. What is your prediction year for the bottom of the market? First of all, it's different all around the country. Different parts of the country move at different speeds. Some start falling and some start rising before the others, right? So that it's not, the market doesn't move as one throughout the country, okay? If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that, hopefully that's got through to you, right? The UK housing market is like, it's the market of a million anecdotes, okay? The market for a flat in the same borough as the market for a detached house is completely different. The prices will be doing different things, moving different directions at different rates, okay? There is no such thing as a single market movement, okay? Which is why you should ignore the national indices and averages. Having said that, history looks back and looks at the housing market as a whole, and you do see peaks and you do see troughs. I'm not confident in this, and it's not a prediction. This is not a prediction. It is a guess. I'm guessing that the bottom is now going to be later than I thought. I think the bottom is going to be 2026. Guessing, right? My guess is the bottom is 2026, but you may or may not see that reported because of the delays in reporting until 2027. I don't know what's going to happen after that at this point. Tony Hill says it's going to be horrible for anyone who hasn't got cash behind them. I agree. I really agree with that. And I think there are still so many people who are just sleepwalking around without realizing what's happening to everyone. And the fact that at the higher end of the market where people are downsizing from, your properties are worth 20% less than your initial expectations. I expect to lose subscribers for comments like that, but it's true. Okay. If for some reason, individual sellers, most, not all, there are some, like the one whose message just read out, who understand that the market determines the price of your home and nothing else. There are so many sellers who go, yes, oh, well, I've seen how bad the market is. And I hear Charlie saying it's going to come down 20%. We get that. Yeah. And we're being realistic about our price too. But, we have wallpapered the inside of the garage and that's worth 20 grand. So we know that. And also we changed the air freshener in the attic. That's put another 5 grand on. And we spent 10 grand on the kitchen. So that's put 20 grand on the price of the house. So yeah, we're being realistic, but the market's done that, but we've done these things, and therefore, I'm obviously being silly, and I'm not trying to insult anyone, but there is a human predisposition to do this, and you have to catch yourself doing it. You have to catch yourself doing it, right? If you're a seller, are you guilty of telling yourself, ours is nicer, ours is nicer, ours definitely nice? You think it's nice. You bought it. Of course you think it's nice. The market doesn't care how much you love your home. You've got to remember that, right? The market doesn't care how much you love your home. I remember once going to view a house a long time ago down in Devon. I'll never forget it. And the guy was showing me around. The seller himself, the owner himself, was showing me around. And he said, come on, I must take you upstairs and show you. We've done some new stuff. And he took me into a room that they just redecorated. And I walked in and my initial reaction was that I thought it was a joke. I genuinely thought it was a joke. It was the most disgusting and tasteless decor I'd ever seen in a bedroom. And he was so proud of it. So you just don't please ever think that because you love your house, the market gives a shit. It doesn't. The market doesn't care how much you love your house. Remember that. Philip Bergin, the shit is literally dripping off the fan. Yeah. but it's in such slow motion. So the boiling frogs analogy is absolutely what's happening here. And everything the government's announcing is doing exactly that and making it worse. People are being forced into selling. Michael Piercy says, "Hi Charlie, is now a good time to buy a shared ownership property? Prices dropping a bit. Is now a good time to buy is a personal and subjective question. Is it a good time for you to buy? If you mean, are shared ownership prices going up or going down? I don't know. I don't know where you are. I don't know what city in the country you're in, and all cities are doing different things. So I can't possibly answer that. All I can say is that shared ownership property is more complicated to buy and more complicated to sell, especially in a difficult market. The compelling reason I know of for buying a shared ownership property is if you are so sick of being moved around from rented and you just actually want to sit tight and be in a home that you cannot be moved on from and taking a long-term view, then it's worth considering. But if you're thinking you're going to move in the next 2 to 5 years, yeah, I'd really worry about it. I wouldn't. But long-term, yeah, perhaps, if it solves other life problems for you. But financially, I don't think it's ever a good time to buy shared ownership. Yeah, that's true. Shady Shack says, sellers always assume that the work they have done has the same value to buyers as it does to them. Yeah, it's exactly right. Oh, we spent 50 grand on refurbing the whole downstairs. That does not mean it's got 50 grand on the value of the house. It literally doesn't mean that at all. Right, hang on a second. To the 656 of you who've been watching so far, could you all just hold on while I recap the last 40 minutes for Paula? Hi, Paula. I know that you weren't asking me that. I can't do that. The 5 facts, they're there for you. But sometimes I see those comments and think you're asking me to make everyone wait while I bring you up to speed. I know that's not what you're doing, but it makes me laugh. James says, would you buy a house on a private road, unadopted, shared with 5 other houses? And does this limit future buyers should you come to sell? I can't speak about that particular situation, but if other people have bought houses on that road and if other houses have sold on that road, and if you're thinking of buying on that road, what is it that you think would put other sellers off? The answer is, if you like the house there and you want to live in it and you want to live in it long term, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. There will be other people who like the house for the same reasons you do in the future. Yeah. Carlos says, just seen a listing starting with buy now before increases in stamp duty on 31st of March. Not the line I'd be leading with if I needed to sell. Yeah. The number of property remaining unsold on the market is going up. Typically, at this time of year, buyers start to get quieter coming up for Christmas, which is a mistake because now is when the bargains are out there. December is when sellers accept offers they wouldn't have accepted at any other time of the year because they just want to get the house under offer before Christmas. And so if I was a buyer looking to buy a house now, I would be out there when no one else is, going to cherry pick the low-hanging fruit of the sellers who've just had enough and they're like, do you know what, we just want to move on. What's the offer? Stanley Cricketer, hello, welcome. Well, you've been a long time viewer, but it's just first time poster. Rightmove rolls eyes, says the average discount for cash is about 4%. Again, averages, and actually there are examples where cash won't get you a discount. There are examples when actually cash might even cost you more than someone with a mortgage, depending on the ethics of the agent selling it. So it's not about a discount for cash, it's a discount for how fast and proceedable you are. So if you can show that your funds are ready to pull the trigger on and you can exchange immediately because you've got your conveyancer lined up already, you have a better chance of having a lower offer accepted. But just purely because it's cash, some people say, I'll be a cash buyer once I've sold my other house. You're not a cash buyer. You're not a buyer of any kind until you've sold your other house. Even when it's under offer, you're still not a cash buyer until it's exchanged. Okay, so there will be places where, higher up the market, lower down the market, that number will change. Don't allow a national average number to inform your decision on an individual property purchase ever. Neil Big H says, I used to be out at the club on a Friday night. Now I'm sat here watching Charlie. What went wrong? You developed some taste. Thomas Moran says, my mate just got laid off from his IT job. Could there be big layoffs coming soon? I think there already have been big layoffs. I think that they're not being reported as much because I think they've been happening as a sort of death by 1,000 cuts. I've had lots of people telling me that they've had friends who were laid off a year ago and have not been able to find new jobs. I think what I think is happening is actually there's a steady rate of layoffs happening, and it isn't a spike. I think next year it'll get worse. And for those of you who are first-time buyers rubbing your hands going, this is great news for us because house prices are going to come down. Perhaps, but the reason that house prices are going to come down at the first-time buyer level is going to be because the economy is in the absolute shitter, basically. Sorry, I tried to find a more eloquent word and I couldn't think of one. Simon, thank you for this. My house sold in a week in September. Realistically priced and invited offers ended up getting more than I thought possible, because that's what always happens if you price realistically and get competing buyers. Always, always, always. No exceptions. You price realistically, you get competing buyers, you'll get more than you expected. Anyone who sold a house because they only got one offer, you've undersold that house. You could have got more with a better agent than if you hadn't overpriced it. Changes coming says, yep, layoffs in IT started about 2 years ago, talking from experience. Paula Collins says, yep, lots of companies reducing workforce. Oh, I'm so glad to see this question. Martin Ogiogwa, I hope I've pronounced that right. Hey, Charlie, I found a new build flat with countryside homes. What are your thoughts on going with an in-house mortgage broker? The calm and reasoned and rational, level-headed professional answer is that there could be a conflict of interest whereby the mortgage broker will have full unfettered access to your full financial situation and could share that with the in-house people selling the house who know that you can afford to pay more than you're offering and will go, no, I'm sorry, you have to pay more, you have to pay more. For that reason, even if it's a good enough broker, I would never go with an in-house broker. Now, that might sound unfair because there are some brokers who are independent, but they sit in offices of estate agents, people like that, and they are good guys and they don't act disingenuously. But without knowing who they are, I would act with caution, and I would choose an independent financial advisor and independent mortgage broker before you go offering anyway. So I would avoid them. You're likely to get, occasionally there can be reasons why they can do better deals because actually there's a deal between the lender and the home seller have a deal and work together. But that's normally because you're overpaying. So I wouldn't generally. It's not like a hard, cold no, but it's I wouldn't. Right, guys. Okay. If you don't mind, I have got my other half waiting on the sofa for me to watch some Friday night telly. It's been a long week, but a really good one. Welcome, special welcome, and thank you to all the new subscribers and followers everywhere. I wish you all a very pleasant, I hate the word pleasant, have a fantastic weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. Starting to feel Christmassy. I got home today and Christmas decorations are up. Got a Christmas tree up. A little bit early. I think it's like Thanksgiving is about the time I think it should start. But I've got poorly kids, and they enjoyed having the decorations going up. But guys, thank you so much for watching and tuning in, and thank you for everything. Glad you enjoy the channel, Martin. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, James, Patricia, TMB, who says I would never buy a leasehold unless the service charges are self-managed. That's I would tend to agree with that. Popalop, Fee, James, thanks, guys. And if you need me, you know where to find me. By the way, there are a few of you who've booked one-to-one video calls with me. I've got a little bit of a backlog. I am getting through them as fast as I can. And if you want to, you can find on my website, mhwc.co.uk/speak to Charlie, speak-to-Charlie. If you don't have a mortgage broker and you want to talk to one, talk to my hand-picked guys there. They are fantastic. Been working with them for over 2 years now. Nothing but good feedback from those guys. So yeah, and the same with my conveyancing guys. And remember, have all those things lined up in advance. And one last plug for myself, which is that if you would like direct access to me to discuss your moving questions and problems, I have a live private movers Q&A, and twice a month you get into a room as a video room with me in person, unrecorded, private, just members of the club there. You also get guaranteed private messages answered, and the members of the club are using it nicely, which is really, really cool. And I do get your messages and backwards and forwards, helping you with your offers, decisions, and negotiations, that kind of stuff. It is £15 a month, and you basically have unfettered access to me by message and twice a month in a live room. And I'm amazed. I think that's very good value for money. But we actually have more people paying £20 a month for the Charlie and Stig show. My other half said people are happy to pay for entertainment. They don't want to pay for advice. Well, my advice is free, but my time isn't. So all the advice on my channels are free, and the videos, it's all there for anyone to see. None of my videos are behind any kind of paywall. But if you need my time directly, I can't do that for nothing. So I hope you understand. That's where you can, it's also in the link in the description below, buymecoffee.com/mhwc/membership is where you can join the Moving Home with Charlie private movers Q&A, and also join the Charlie and Stig Club. And Wednesday next week, Charlie and Stig back in the house. What's the challenge? Mad Mountain Man, what's the challenge? What? Stanley Cricketer says 24,700 subscribers. Way to go. I was there for show number 1. Wow. You have been here a while. Yeah, the subscribers, they're ticking up nicely. It's very nice. It's very, very good. Anthony Wood says, do your conveyancer guys deal with auction sales, as I'm interested as a cash buyer? Yeah, they can help you with that. And I actually had a fantastic bit of feedback from someone about how they didn't know conveyancers could be that good. My guys are actually multiple award-winning guys, so make sure your conveyancer lined up first. Mountains Man says, challenge. Oi, Charlie, you're full of guff. We're all full of guff, aren't we? Comes out the rear.